Now let's move on to the next session on the theme of quantum technology, paving the way to a sustainable future. The panelists are Mr. Taro Shimada, Toshiba Corporation Representative Director, Corporate Officer, President and CEO. Mr. Christophe Jurczak, Quantonation Managing Partner. Mr. Simone Severini, Amazon Web Services General Manager, Quantum Technologies. This session is moderated by Mr. Alexandra Beckstein, Pave Ventures CEO. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. I'm honored to share the stage with three leading figures from the quantum industry. My name is Alexandra. I'm leading a company called Pave Ventures, and we invest into quantum startups. We develop and we build quantum startups. When I started to work in quantum 5 years ago, the question was not what quantum can do. The question was more, can quantum do in industry anything? Today we are talking already about if quantum technology can even be used to bring us a more sustainable future. Maybe to add an example, only last year we invited industry players, experts, and 120 students to meet in a hackathon 3 days and 2 nights to solve real-world problems out of the UN sustainability goals, health, industry, and energy. Some of these applications are implemented even today by the corporate partners that ran the hackathon with us. 120 hackers we had. 120 is also the numbers of startups that we had 5 years ago when I entered to work in the quantum world. Today we're not only talking about 120 startups, we talk about 700 to 800 startups that develop quantum technology. Quantum is growing worldwide. We also see ourselves, we grew from a headquarter in Europe to offices in North America, in Singapore, and now also in Tokyo. The industry is growing and we have major players on stage. And before we start the discussion, I would like to make sure you know who you are talking to, who you are listening today. Please present yourself, Mr. Taro Shimada, CEO of Toshiba, Chairman of Q-Star, and he's a main figure steering Japan's industrial legacy into a quantum-powered future. Please.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, first of all, welcome to the Sushi Tech Tokyo. I'm Taro Shimada, CEO of Toshiba. At the same time that I'm leading the Quantum Strategic Alliance for the Revolution called Q-Star, which we built 4 years ago. Since then, we are working very closely together with the government and professors and also the international community to foster the industrialization of quantum. The Japanese government is really keen on to see that quantum development as an industry in Japan and also outside of Japan too. So they are actually very much open to gaining an investment outside of Japan, but at the same time that they are also spending the government money to attract all those quantum technology into Japan. So it's going to be a very interesting opportunity for many of the investors here to invest in Japan, and let's see that how we can actually be able to build the new quantum era.
Thank you so much. I hand over to Mr. Christophe Jurczak, Managing Partner at Quantonation, a pioneer investor in quantum technology and a quantum physicist himself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Very happy to be here today and share our vision on investing in quantum technologies. So I'm a physicist by training. I did my PhD close to 30 years ago with a professor who turned out to win the Nobel Prize, Professor Alain Aspect.
Really?
Really, neutral atoms 2022, and me was 1996.
Okay.
So a while ago. At the time, there was not much you can do with quantum science, actually. Definitely not find a job in the industry. The thing that's always amazing to me is that 30 years later, young people study quantum science, they work in labs, and then they get to startups, to large corporates. So the world has changed, and that's very important. As an investor, I've started making investments in quantum technologies back in 2018. So I'm running a fund with 2 other partners. We have more or less, I'd say, 220 million at the moment, hoping to get to 300 million to invest in startups, and we have invested in 32 companies. Very proud also to say that Toshiba is an LP, limited partner, into our fund, so we have close ties with Japan, with some familiar figures that I'm seeing here, and looking forward to do more business, invest in startups here, because the science in Japan is really fantastic, world-class, as we all know. I just regret, I think there should be more startups, and that's our job. So we'd like to see more of that happening here. So making investments, finding investors for us to develop our concepts and build the quantum industry.
Thank you so much, Christophe. I hand over to you, Simone Severini. He's the general manager at Amazon Web Service. He was also a professor of physics and information at the University College of London. And I found a phrase from you on LinkedIn saying, quantum technology for you, it's a strange beast, overhyped and undersold at the same time. Please.
So thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to be here today. I have been interested in quantum computing since late 90s. I was an academic and I transitioned to industry. And I've seen lots of things happening in this space. And I'm still very much excited as I was when I started learning about it. There's still a lot of learning. To me, quantum computing is mostly an opportunity to discover new things, because we should interpret these machines as scientific instruments that will unlock innovation that is very hard to predict. Even when it comes to sustainability, which is the main topic of the discussion today, it's very hard to see where quantum computing will take us, but I'm very confident that building quantum computers in the long term will allow us to do certain things that we cannot do today. And so we need to build quantum computers. And for doing that, we need to work together. And that's what we are doing at Amazon Web Services. We have a cloud service which offers quantum computers prototype today to a customer base of startups, governments, academics, and so on. And also we are building our own quantum devices. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Simone. Maybe we can go on grounding ourselves a bit more in the fundamentals, as you started already. What makes quantum computing the next game changer, and why should the industry care and overgo the idea that it could be only a hype? Why should we care about the technology and the sustainability goals? Simone, yes.
I go back to what I just started mentioning. So you see, physical reality is what we experience with our senses, right? So we are in this room here, we can see, we can hear, we can touch things. This is classical physics. This is the physics that we use, the physics that govern the behavior of the computers that we use today, our cell phones, the computers we use at home, the supercomputers in national labs. But there is another layer of physical reality, which is quantum physics. And to access that layer, we need specialized equipment, we need specialized tools. And quantum computers are, for us today, the only way that we know in order to access the layer of physical reality. And if we want to understand how the world works at the fundamental level, that's what we need to do. And innovation will be unlocked by scientific discovery, because technology of the future is science of today.
Christophe, you are guiding this development since the beginning with investments. Why should we overgo the hype?
Yeah. So, I mean, adding to your point, so there's a formula that I'm using these days. I tend to say, quantum mechanics is the operating system of the world. Like that's a little bit the same story, I'd say.
Yeah.
And when you think of it, I mean, we've started, and the story started with, for me, like in 2016, with when IBM put a couple of qubits online, people started to experiment, learn about the technology and develop, etc. So it's fairly recent. The amount of progress over the last 10 years, I think, it's always glass half full, half empty. I guess it depends on how you look at that, has been nothing but, well, extraordinary. I mean, on the hardware side, on the software, on the applications, and that's what keeps me excited. But again, it's the operating system of the world. So it has to be the solution to challenges, problems that we're facing in our lives, that scientists are facing. So in terms of modelizing very large complex systems, for example, finding new materials. I mean, we're talking about sustainability, and these are a couple of topics that are emerging when you're thinking about quantum computing in particular and applications. I think no doubt about the applications, but the fact that it's urgent and important, of course, now how to do it, how to get from science to products to applications, and then to the technology being deployed. A little bit of a challenge we have, if we compare, for example, to AI, ChatGPT, everybody is using ChatGPT these days. Not everybody is using quantum, I think, and quantum technologies. So that's the notion of the killer app that people are looking for. And it's true, I think this is a technology that starts to be already of practical interest at the scientific level for scientific discovery. Now we need to find bigger applications there. And that's going through putting machines in the hands of people, have them experiment, get to use it, and finding applications. And as an investor, of course, that's something we're super interested in, because for us, there are different possibilities. We can invest in the startups. We're working with corporates to help them get these machines to use, etc., etc. So, and of course, sustainability is a big topic and something we're focusing on as a fund. I think like we are, well, for people familiar with that, I mean, there are different categories of fund with so-called Article 8 fund. So we're implementing ESG in our processes, also working so that the startups in our portfolio are reporting ESG indicators quite a bit, so working hard on all of that, and it's working actually. So people are really into it, and I'm super happy to report, and we're generating not only documents, but also collaborations, people working together, and it's going definitely into the right direction.
I think it's a good sign, it's very good examples, what you were just explaining, that quantum technology is entering the industry. And also a good sign, I think, is that 2 years ago we saw that the investments from governments were bigger than the private investments, actually.
Yeah.
Also in Japan, we see a major commitment from the government into the development of quantum technology. I think your government invested will invest 900 million over the next 5 years.
That's right. Yeah.
Also committed to build large ecosystems, innovation centers.
Yes.
And with Toshiba amongst the main leaders, with Q-Star amongst the main leaders. Talking about Q-Star, you are an industrial alliance founded only 4 years ago to unite the industry in quantum in Japan. And your vision is to bring quantum technology to the daily lives. That's even a step further.
Yeah.
For millions by 2030. That's in 5 years.
That's right.
Where do you see the earliest real-world applications that will impact everyday people? And how is Japanese industry already positioned to do so?
That's right. Well, thank you very much for the good question. And it's actually that it's not the 1 million, that's actually 10 million is something that we are shooting for. So this is something what we call that, just like when, the Christophe said, how you can easily, normal human like me can start using a quantum technology. So this is like, what I'm called the ChatGPT moment of a quantum technology. This is what we wanted to achieve in 2030. So in order to do this, we have to have a layer of the technology to shield from the big changes. Because all those new quantum computer has a very different technology behind this. Whether this is superconducting or, cold atom, all kinds of different technologies coming up. But we will have to have some kind of absorption layer so that you can actually keep doing the same thing, but you can access the entirely new technologies. Always keep it updated. So would you please put up on the slide for me? スライドを出してもらっていいですか？もし可能なら。Oh,
Next one.
that's not one. Next one. This is for him.
That's also a nice one, maybe.
Yeah.
Good.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah,
That's the right one.
That's right. So that in order to do this, we will have to have standardized the architecture, and then also that we will have to have how the quantum can be used. So business use case is very important. So we're developing all kinds of new business use cases. The Q-Star, we have 120 members, but more than 60% of that membership is coming from the user side. So they are saying that, Shimada-san, if you can solve this problem, I will buy the quantum service tomorrow. So those are the use cases that we have collected. And then we put the test bed, working together with the Japanese government, and then create something called Z-Quad in Sansoken in Japan, AIXT, to buying the best technology from the world, and then putting over there, and then creating a test bed, and then applying those use cases to if you can actually be able to solve this problem or not. But like I said, that there's all kinds of different quantum technologies. So in order to solve this problem, we will have to have some kind of architecture. This is the proposed architecture. We actually try to put it on IEC, so that we can create the ChatGPT moment.
Thank you so much. We are looking forward to it. So all these infrastructure you're talking about, they need, all these developments you're talking about needs an infrastructure. And infrastructure is, when it comes to digital trust, is a crucial enabler for the UN sustainability goals also.
Yeah.
Simone, question to you. Looking at the quantum roles in digital trust, how do you see the future of secure, sustainable digital infrastructure evolving? And when does quantum become a game changer in cybersecurity?
Yeah, so this is a question that everyone asks these days, right? Because as we know, quantum computers are a threat to certain type of cryptographic codes that secure communication. But quantum computers have also been an opportunity to rethink these codes, to rethink these protocols. And in fact, the community of mathematicians have come up with new algorithms to secure information, which are called post-quantum cryptography algorithms. And then there are also some techniques like what Toshiba has been working for the last 20 years or so, which is quantum key distribution, using quantum technology itself to secure information against potentially quantum attacks, right? So it's unclear the timeline for quantum computers to be a real threat to information security, but there's lots of activity out there ongoing to make sure that companies and governments and actors are prepared for that moment. So unclear timeline, but lots of activity in preparation for that future. And so quantum computing has been more an opportunity than a threat.
Thank you. Christophe, question to you about the sustainability you are maybe searching in the targets you're investing in. How do you incorporate sustainability in your investment decisions?
Okay. So as I was mentioning a bit earlier, so Article 8, that means in our process to source companies, evaluate them, make investment decisions. We have ESG criteria in particular, and we're working on the reporting with the startups as well. So it's very formal and very efficient, I would say. That leads us to focus on a couple of topics that 100% fill in the requirements. Like, for example, we started a company that's developing, and it's a good example, quantum materials for energy storage. We've had lithium, we've had cobalt, we've had nothing nasty like that, and it's definitely using quantum computers to do the design and the simulation. So, as you can imagine, fairly easy to evaluate with this criteria. For some other technologies, it's more challenging. But usually we're getting there. We just invested in a company that's also very impressive. It's compact particle accelerator using very powerful lasers to shorten the distance it takes to accelerate electrons and generate X-rays, for example. So I think I'd say it's in our process, but also what we try to do is also to share a vision and build a community. So, for example, we're working with Professor Aspect, the Nobel Prize. He's working with us. He's a scientific advisor. And last year, we organized a workshop in France, the Alain Aspect Symposium on climate and quantum. That's obviously an interesting topic. We brought 200 people from all over the world, including from Japan. So researchers, industrialists, investors. And the thing we wanted to do is to have scientists from the climate sector, like Tim Palmer from Apple, from Oxford, very famous professor in CFD, and scientists in quantum technologies, and bring them together. Because on the one hand, you hear about the problems, on the other hand, about the solution. But I'd say, don't ask a quantum scientist to find the solution on his own. He doesn't even know the problem. So it's really about putting the people together in the same room and try to find and develop new ideas. So it was quite successful. We're doing it again this year. It's going to be in Sherbrooke in Canada on materials. And we're also sponsoring a very nice initiative, which is the Quantum Energy Symposium in Padova, in Italy. It's going to be in June in the context of another initiative, Quantum Energy Initiative, the QEI. So we're funding a little bit with our resources, these initiatives, but bringing people together, I think, beyond the criteria of the fund, which we are implementing with responsible investment principles, etc. I think that's also super important. Building an ecosystem, you mentioned that. That's what you're doing with GQuat as well. Yeah. I think it's a great idea. Really putting people together. Again, asking computer scientists about quantum or quantum scientists about challenges and problems abstractly doesn't make any sense. It's really by putting people in the same room that we're going to
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's very important to talk about industry implications, and it's very interesting that you were also talking about quantum for the energy sector. Yeah. We were discussing in the back a little bit. Also, we as Kai, we are launching now a quantum for energy cluster from Japan and connecting it to the Canadian cluster that we have for companies working in energy or using energy, how they can work quantum technology to boost their businesses. So question to you, Shimada-san.
Yeah.
Toshiba is already very active in engaging with all kinds of industry applications in quantum, also in the energy sector. Can you maybe share some examples with us in the field of energy efficiency or also smart cities maybe?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there's many aspects that if you can actually using a quantum computer to develop that new material, for example, is one interesting area. But at the same time, that it's already available solution is something called the quantum simulations, which is like quantum algorithm running on that normal semiconductor. So these optimizations called Ising machine or annealing machine is a very unique selling point that in Japan was developed quite advanced. And using this, we can actually optimizing the transport of the goods or even the human, or you actually optimizing energy sources or how you send the data and so forth. By doing this, you can actually, some of the studies saying that you can save that 20% of the entire energy, for example. So, but in order to do this, those information about that, where people is using this energy and that energy, or who is moving that or where, have to be somehow connected. So it's not really that the simple quantum problem, but it is the things that have to be connected with the digitally
Yeah.
But this information is fed into the quantum computer. The beauty of the quantum computer is you can actually optimize the huge amount of the data in a very short amount of the time, which is amazing. But if you don't have a data, like Amazon does, how can you solve the problem? So this have to be hand in hand. All those edge informations have to be connected. But by having those information, we can have very interesting optimizations to be able to optimize our life easier.
Thank you. Talking about material science and about data centers, Simone, which sustainable related quantum use cases is AWS already exploring?
So at AWS, we are doing two things. So we are building our own quantum computers based on technology which use superconductivity. And then we do offer already access to a number of different quantum computers built by startups out there. And in this way, I hope that we are supporting the community and innovation happening across the board. So right now, the biggest challenge in quantum computing, something which we haven't mentioned during this conversation, is that it's very difficult to build quantum computers. And the timeline for this machine to be impactful in business is still to some extent unknown, still unclear. And there are many different ways, many different approaches to try to build quantum computers. Which one is going to be the best one, if there will be a best one, is also unclear. But what I can say is that innovation is happening, and we should really interpret quantum computing, a metaphor that I like very much, like the space program. You know, the space program to going to the moon. So to trying to go to the moon, we ended up to invent many things, like fireman suits, like LED bulbs, like error-correcting codes for communication. This is happening right now as we are trying to build quantum computers. So we are inventing an entire new field, which is quantum engineering, and manipulating quantum systems with a level of precision that we could not before. And the bottleneck is building quantum computers, of course, but we are inventing new stuff, and we are moving slowly towards that goal.
Can you be a little bit more precisely on the technical side, but not too technical that everyone can understand? What exactly is the bottleneck in R&D on the hardware side and on the software side?
Yes, very briefly. We want to have many, many qubits. So the qubit is the fundamental unit for quantum computers, is the quantum analog of bit. So we want to have quantum computers with a lot of qubits, hundreds of thousands of qubits. But also, we need to be able to manipulate these qubits with a high level of precision, because quantum computers are prone to error, meaning that every operation that they perform, there is a certain probability of error, and we want to minimize as much as possible this probability with some form of redundancy. This is difficult, and there are many approaches. Which one is the best one is still unknown.
Thank you so much. Christophe, you were talking a lot about bringing together people to develop the quantum industry, which I think we all share this vision. What about the public? What role, in your eyes as an investor, does the public play?
The what? Sorry?
The public. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, a bit better.
Okay,
yes.
super. I said you were talking a lot about bringing people together in the quantum ecosystem to develop quantum technology, which is true. I think we all share this idea, this vision. What about the public? For you as an investor, how important is it to engage with the public to explain what quantum computing can do?
Yeah, I think that's something I tend to say quite often, is that the narrative, one of the challenges of the field is the lack of a consistent narrative. Storytelling is important for quantum. So Simone, I think you made a very good point. I mean, we need to have the public understand a general framework about what's going on in quantum. There's a lot of noise, there's always hype in every innovation, as you know, so we're going through a cycle, exaggerated expectations, and then things get a little bit more, people get to be a little bit more realistic, and then it comes back. In quantum, it looks like every day when you open your newspaper, even New York Times, Wall Street Journal, etc., there's a breakthrough that's going to change the world all of a sudden. So I think there's a little bit of a something that the community as a whole is responsible of, academics, investors, industry, is to craft a narrative so that the public understand the difference also between science, which will be taking time to implement, products, and starting one step at a time with quantum communication already pretty mature, quantum sensing also, for example, with short-term applications, and then maybe annealing, icing machines in the short term, fault tolerant in the longer term, etc. This whole narrative, I think, is missing in quantum, and then it's really hard for the public to figure out, is it happening tomorrow, is it happening in 5 years, in 10 years? You listen to NVIDIA CEO, sometimes you don't know, maybe it's in 50 years, who knows? But I think for people in the field, there's a way to craft this story. We definitely need more collaboration and the kind of structure that you're putting together in Japan, a center like GQuad, for example, for me is important also for that, because if in the same place you have all these actors working together, they can craft a narrative and work on application, proof of concepts, and explain, also have some pedagogy about what's going on. I think, yeah, crafting the narrative is really important, and as an investor, that's honestly a challenge I have with pretty much all of my startups. I was in a call with one this morning, but I'm facing that every day. I think they're not really good at explaining what they're doing, what's the impact, how it's going to change the world at some point, but also progressively. It's really hard, actually, to do. I think there should be more focus on that. It's going to be very important for the people and the development of the whole industry.
Thank you so much. Going a step further from the public to human capital, Shimada-san.
Okay.
One of Q-Star's mission is to foster human capital in quantum. What skills beyond R&D are important? What do you think that we have to develop in the future leaders and developers beside quantum physics?
Yeah. So I already said it maybe, but the Q-Star has 120 membership, and more than 60% of the company is actually coming from the user side. So they are not really quantum expert. They probably know some of the physics, but I mean, they are not really understanding how the qubit works or anything like that. They only have a problem, gigantic problem they want to solve, basically. How we can actually optimizing this and this all together. You never think before. Those are the kind of people who are actually pushing the limit of the potential of the quantum. So this is a little bit difficult because we are doing something like how you can actually maximizing iPhone capability before iPhone is coming up. But you can do that if you have an imaginary. And then you do that. And then in order to do this, there's all kinds of different type of a quantum computer or quantum communication, all kinds of products. But something has to be coordinated. So this is why we are very much focusing on those architecture. So if you see underneath, there's a different type of the computing mechanism. Even that normal computer is there too. Hypercomputing, but we are overarching. So at the end of the day, you are just doing SNS, or you're just using Excel, or using Word, or something. You're used to it every day. But behind the scene, a quantum computer is calculating something for you. This is something that we wanted to achieve. In order to do this, there's many, many layers in between to make this possible. And this is where all those different type of the engineer requires. This is not the quantum engineering. This is like software engineering. The people who knows how to coding and how to creating APIs, how to shifting changes, to protecting from that sudden changes from the users. This is where lots of people requires to understanding how you can actually use the quantum API to matching into that normal applications, for example. And those are the kind of people, and then also that explaining in a easy language English is not easy for me, but anyway, easy language to how it's going to be done. And then there's a lot of people attracted to it. So this is why I'm saying that you don't have to be a quantum expert to be a part of the quantum ecosystem. Because it's becoming bigger, and your job and your investment will be bigger too.
Thank you. Having developed all these talents, let's have a look into the year 2035. Having developed all the talent, having developed the technology that works, that means we will have a major shift in the economy, and it will tremendously change the world, and no one knows how. The question is, how can we make sure in a sustainable world that we are aiming for, that everyone globally gets the same access to quantum computers? Also facing expert controls, which is only one of the issues that we are facing now. What is your thoughts on this? The question goes to all of you. Please start.
Me? Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that international collaboration is very important. That's why that we want to put these things up here, not hiding behind the scene. So try to make it open architecture so that everybody can participate and everybody can play the role. And then also that the Japanese investment, government investment, is not just for the Japanese company. The people who has a great idea, people who has a great technology, but don't know how to be used, for example. Or I found that a really clever way to manipulate the qubit, but would you please somebody using it? And then just bring into the G-quad. Then there's a bunch of the other people, financial or automotive or chemical or energy company like us. And oh, if you can do this, but it has to be open system. So anybody can be able to access in the latest, greatest technology.
Christophe,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, adding to that, I think, so just an anecdote, I think a year and a half ago, there was a workshop at the Vatican on quantum, actually, and at the Pontifical Academy of Science. So Cardinal Turkson actually was leading the debate, so we might have a Pope that's quantum aware. So he's among the candidates, it seems it should be there. But it was very interesting because we had some kind of discussions like that. And I crafted at the time, I made a paper about the notion that's very close to what you're doing with G-Quad, that I call a co-design center. Really are living at the same place, the people working on both the technology and the hardware, but also working on the demand. So our first implementation, our experience, something we've done in Canada, in Sherbrooke, which is a university east of Montreal. So there's a place, again, very similar to your concept, where you have a few startups already there are staff, you have an IBM computer, you're going to have some other technologies, and quantum communication test beds. We have a venture studio to create new companies that are coming out of universities. But it's important that it's happening in a place also, actually. I think that's a way to focus energies. And I think there's something coming from this discussion is really that we need to put together the demand and the supply, so the technology and the people using the technology, especially for sustainability. I think there's a topic we've not mentioned too much, but quantum could be, well, it's a debate, but there are good intuitions about that, useful to reduce the electricity consumption for data centers.
Yeah.
Reasons for this, a machine is consuming much less. Whether when we do error correction is going to be true is still to be discovered or discussed, but that's the kind of place where you can have these discussions about the future of the technology and the energy demand. I really strongly believe we should foster these initiatives in Japan, Singapore, Middle East, and over our conversations in the US, in Europe, etc. So building some connectivity, even if a world that is geopolitically, let's say, a little bit more challenging, I think that's a way where through applications we could get more connections between people.
Building connectivity, that's the word for AWS, I guess. How does AWS ensure global equality in the quantum era? I think how do you ensure a global equality in the quantum era as AWS? I think you play a major role.
So you see, this is going to be a very long journey, right? And like in every long journey, you want to walk together. Maybe if you are alone, you can be faster. But as the proverbs say, if you want to go far, it's better to go together, right? And as it's been already said here, we need a lot of different people working with each other. You need engineers, you need mathematicians, you need physicists, you need people that understand materials, people that understand software. It's a marvelous challenge at the global scale. And that's the way I personally like to interpret the road towards quantum computers, like something that should involve a large number of different parties working together. And in this way, we can truly create value. Because quantum is not something that is a 5-year project. You know, it's not a short epoch. This is gonna stay with us, with mankind, with humanity. So how long it's gonna take, it will take. Definitely openness is crucial to advance together.
Christophe, are we there yet? Are we there yet at a global equality, or based on your investment portfolio? Can you maybe tell us which countries are leading the way in quantum technology development?
So I think there's a little bit of an issue with hearing what you say, but I guess I get it. So I'm going to get there. So I think there are a couple of challenges also on the investment side that we are facing, in particular because the technology is progressing. I think now is the time to develop tools and funding tools as well for so-called scale-ups, companies that are starting to mature, getting 5-6 years old, who need a lot of money, actually, like hundreds of millions. Series B, Series C, in the language of venture capital. You need to find that kind of money. I think we, as an investor, have been focusing on early stage. Europe, for example, has been very strong in helping develop new companies, a combination of private investment, public support, very smart schemes for grants, equity as well, called from the European Innovation Council, for example. So it's all good and fine. We have a good portfolio of companies like Pascal in France, Qubit Pharmaceuticals as well, drug design, quantum computing, etc. But they reach a point when they need a lot of money and they need a lot of capex. This is capital intensive. I think that's where the challenge lies at the moment a little bit. How to get to the next phase, how to fund these companies, find hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, euros, trillions of yens maybe to get there. I think governments in particular start to realize it's important to have an industry to start the startup, but then you need to transform them into something bigger. I think that's what we will face as a challenge over the next couple of years, to do this transition, to bring this startup to the next phase. It requires a lot of capital. Again, it will be a public-private endeavor, working together. We have the idea to work on a new fund, for example, to fund these companies post-Series B. Should be very large, maybe $1 billion, maybe something like that, working on that. But I think that's going to be a little bit the challenge, so that these wonderful companies, quantum computing companies, software, etc., don't stop at a point with great ideas, great applications, but they need really to scale to the next phase.
So from your experience, what countries are leading the way? In which countries as a startup it is especially good to scale or to develop?
I think Europe has been very good at developing an ecosystem where you have the combination of several factors. Very good deep tech VC scene. That's something we've seen in France, for example, in the UK, in Germany, combined with grants. In quantum, you need public funding, you need grants. I mean, it's not only purely private, so there needs to be that as well, plus obviously the academic talent, I mean the academic excellence. So the combination of that, public funding, private funding, academic excellence, I think that's a little bit how we judge if an ecosystem is going to be successful. So Europe has been good, generated a lot of new startups. If you look at the statistic, I think in the last 5 years, pretty much half of the quantum companies created in the world have been created in Europe, actually. More even than in the US or elsewhere. I think Japan now, and that's something I've seen here also, has now a stronger VC scene for deep tech, more appetite, more interest for risk, because you need that. I mean, these projects take time. It's not a return in 5 years. It's a return in more than 10 years. And I've met great VCs here, new teams, really focusing. I think we need more to facilitate, let's say, the extraction of the science from academia into startups. That's still a little bit of a challenge. In our experience, it's not happening on its own. We need to find ways to create more companies.
Yeah. Thank you. I think the secret word here is collaboration. And I would like to give the last word to Shimada-san, asking you, where do you see the biggest opportunity for Japan to lead, and how can Japan's approach to responsible quantum innovation contribute to also shape global standards?
Right. Thank you very much. I think there are two things. We are very practical. So we build that the use case even today we can use. There's many people who already start using quantum technologies today here in Japan. It's not like, the big changes of that big quantum computer, but more of, quantum sensing or small quantum optimization, but it starts. So it's a little bit of the Japanese nature. We making incremental effort to getting better and better and better and better. But we wanted to make sure we provide the architecture and use cases in order to those incremental changes can be happen. This is probably the little bit unique way of our approach here in Japan, which we can actually copy and paste and working together with the European and US colleagues.
Thank you very much. I think Japan is on the way to prove that it is on the way to be at the forefront of the development. That's why we are all here. That's why you are all here. And I'm looking forward to the ChatGPT moment coming maybe out of your country in maybe 2030 already. Thank you very much for your attention and see you later. Thank you.
ご覧いただきました皆様ありがとうございました。Please
Thank you.
give a big round of applause to all of the speakers.
Thank you, Shimada-san. It was great. Thank you. Thank you, Christophe.
It was tough to hear you.
I don't know. I'm sorry. That's the technique.
Thank you.
Well done.
ぜひ日テ広報のコネクテッドスペースにお越しください。